Let's dive into some. Let's do a big segment here, Wildcard, just on the NRL and Aotearoa Rugby League, because things are getting quite interesting. We're approaching some finals footy, and there's a massive Aotearoa presence in some really big games this weekend, especially, which is where we'll zone in on. Starting tonight, you got the Roosters versus Broncos. Doesn't get much more Kiwi-NRL than Roosters versus Broncos right now. Joey Manu is on fire. He's starting at centre for the Roosters. Waireo Hargraves there. Broncos have Dean Mariner and Jordan Ricky. Te Maire Martin has just signed with the Warriors as well. Interested to see what happens there, just because I think like Shans Nickel-Klokstad's starting at fullback in reserve grade. And there's this whole like yarn, the family's always a factor and all that stuff. Like it's all real, it's all legit. Also lost his NRL spot. So if you're moving clubs, that might be the main reason why. And I don't think Nickel-Klokstad's going to be a fullback at the Warriors. I think Te Maire Martin could be a fullback at the Warriors. And the Broncos' best footy, low-key, came with Te Maire Martin starting at fullback. I think he won like 5 or 6 consecutive games upon his return to the NRL after Waikato hibernation. So that's just something interesting there. He won't play against the Roosters, but he did sign with the Warriors. Just another opportunity to see Dean Mariner play for the Broncos is a big one. And he might line up against Joseph Manu. Oh, I think so. Dean Mariner started at left centre for the Broncos last week. Joey Manu usually plays right centre. So hopefully we do get Joey Manu versus Dean Mariner. That is absolutely bonkers. Manu from Tokoroa, Dean Mariner from Auckland, Marasanes Jr. That is just blowing my mind, Wildcard. Any thoughts on Joey Manu versus Dean Mariner or any Roosters Broncos yarn?
I don't know. Manu versus Mariner is very much like the emerging force kind of thing against like the dude who's been there for several years, established as like potentially the best player in that position in the entire NRL, like even beyond the Kiwi-NRL thing. He might be the best center in the NRL. Like it's not quite master and apprentice, because it's not like they come up together or one's like mentored the other one, but kind of in a symbolic way, that's exactly what it is in a different line of thinking, in a metaphorical sense. That's I always like when those kind of connections happen, and you can draw in like this big, almost like mythological context to a matchup like that. So yeah, that's probably one to keep a bit of an eye out for. I would hazard a suggestion.
They are similar in how they, like, Dean Mariner's played one game, so it's a small sample size. But I did like Joey Manu came into the NRL stepping, offloading, just being everything he was at all levels below that. And that was my main takeaway about Dean Mariner's debut, is he just did the same shit he's been doing in Queensland Cup, and he did it at the NRL level without it looking too difficult for him. So there's that similarity, but they are quite different as centers. Like Joey Manu is a playmaking center in the sense that he's going to put on a step, he's going to find space, he's going to offload. And as he's matured, we've seen him pop up in a wide range of spots, taking a hit up, playing like a second fullback type of role. Dean Mariner had one offload in 6 or 7 reserve grade games off the top of my head. And he didn't offload in his debut. So his skill set is more speed and physicality. Like he doesn't look massive, like it's always distorted when you're watching on telly, but he doesn't look massive on the field, but he does look quite powerful. He's quick, he's silky, he's classy, but he's not a playmaker like Joey Manu. And that's just the low-key difference to ponder, because he doesn't have the offloading skill set sorted in the same way Joey Manu does, as maybe the best offloading outside back there ever has been. Storm versus Titans, like, we're gunning for a Storm win there. And who cares? Manly Seagulls versus Parramatta Eels is, given what I've said about Dylan Brown, that's a interesting contest. Obviously, Manly Seagulls, they've got their situation ongoing, and all their players are back. But Alfred Smalley drops out, and he wasn't named in reserve grade either, so he must have injury or suspension. I don't know. But I'm actually curious where Alfred Smalley goes from here, because he is a bit down on the Manly Seagulls wing depth chart. And this wasn't like, I didn't see this like announced as news, but Raymond Tuaimalo Vainga, who is another Maris Saints Jr., he's been in the Sea Eagles wider squad a few times, extended bench, and he's a starting winger. And he played in a trial earlier this year. But I think he might have been part of that Sea Eagles situation. So he didn't get the call up. Alfred Smalley got the call up. And like, if you're a Melbourne Storm and you're looking for some outside back type of depth, Smalley is someone who I think if the opportunities aren't there with the Seagulls, Smalley is someone who other teams might be looking at, because otherwise just stuck in reserve grade. And someone like a team like the Storm, so they're missing their top tier outside backs. So I think Will Warbrick is out injured as well, so he hasn't got the call up, the promotion. And then you're missing the first, second, third tackle hit ups from your own try line. So what do the best teams do? They've got Brian To'o. They've got Micah Sevo. Like, the Tigers aren't the best team, but they have Ken Mamalo doing that job. You need some power in your outside backs for those early carries. The Sharks have Mulatalo. It's all there. Smalley is someone who could offer that, and I just thought he might be a good fit with the Melbourne Storm, but I'm hoping he gets some more NRL footy moving forward. I'm not sure where he sits with the Sea Eagles, because they do have a lot of outside back depth as well. But yeah, Eels versus Sea Eagles. We're looking at the Eels. I'm just always fascinated by the Eels. They're chasing finals footy. It's kind of all doom and gloom now without Mitchell Moses, but again, we know they have one of the best Kiwi-NRL crews in the competition. Dylan Brown in the halves, Isaiah Papali'i on the edge, Makahisi Makatoa from New Plymouth. He's always a low-key monster. And Maratu Neokore rounding out the bench. Do you have any thoughts on Dylan Brown there, Wildcard, just after the... I chucked him up in the hot take segment on the variety show. No Mitchell Moses, Dylan Brown. What are you kind of thinking about as a fellow Northlander? How about that?
Well, you laid out a nice case for how this has been a bit of a I was going to say a breakout season for him, because he's what was the thing? He's doubled his he's beaten all of his try assist tallies combined for his previous 3 seasons or whatever, and then he's also got the most tries he's ever scored in an NRL season. So he's clearly, the reason I laughed at the idea of it being a breakout season is because it feels like every year has been a breakout season for him. Like he bursts onto the scene as a rookie, and then he gets even better the next year. It's like, oh, this is the break. And then he gets even better the next year. And the same thing is continuing to happen. This feels like a bit of a, because they are in like crucial must win. I mean, they're in the where are they? 6th as it stands. Potentially only 2 points off 3rd, but points difference is not their friend there. And there are 5 or 6 teams competing for maybe 2 spots below them. So if they do drop points with Mitchell Moses out, suddenly they get dragged back into that mix. So there's no guarantee they will make the top 8, even though they're in a good position right now. So they do need to be winning these games. It does feel like a little bit of a rare situation for Dylan Brown, where because who's gonna replace Moses? Do you know the name? Arthur. There you go. So Dylan Brown effectively gets to be like the senior half in that combination, I'd imagine. And that is something that we've seen this like progressively him adding new skill sets to his game and just becoming more and more effective in more ways, continuing to grow as an NRL player with each season. But this feels like a little window where it's something different that we haven't seen from him before, where it's like he gets to be the guy. Even if just for a couple weeks, but there are a couple very important weeks where they really need to be grinding out a win or two. That does feel like a little. It's not ideal. You'd rather just have a full strength team, but it does feel like a nice little opportunity for him to really I don't know, stamp his case a little bit more and put his hand up because a lot of the credit at the Eels does go to guys like Moses and Gutherson and guys like that for good reason, but Dylan Brown has also been doing an outstanding job alongside those guys. And then maybe here's like a spotlight window for him to do something that he maybe hasn't done or hasn't had the opportunity to do in his NRL career today,
Especially when his playmaking stats have blown previous stuff out, as we've discussed. He's also averages 119 meters, I think it was, per game. And you'd struggle to find a half who averages 100 running meters per game. I think off the top of my head for 2 consecutive seasons. We're all out here hoping Sean Johnson runs for 60 meters.
Yeah.
Right? Dylan Brown and Jerome Hughes, those type of dudes, they are running 100 meters every single game. However, all his extra playmaking and stuff like that has come at the expense of his kicking. So this season he's done far less kicking. So what do you need to do with no Mitchell Moses? Dylan Brown, everything you're discussing to me just is his kicking game. And that is the extra development wrinkle that hopefully we can see, is that he gets his 100 meters running the footy, he tackles, he misses 1 or 2 tackles. You can't target Dylan Brown defensively. He's literally just a edge forward when you think about it. He averages 100 meters per game and maybe 10 to 15 tackles at 90%. That's what you want from your edge forward. And Dylan Brown's doing it as a 22-year-old half. Now we're looking to see if he can control the game. Can he kick to the corners? Can he execute the right kick at the right time? And take a bit of pressure off Jacob Arthur, take a bit of pressure off Clint Gutherson. And I don't know, this is a Kiwi-NRL bias because we're from Aotearoa, but I'm kind of thinking if everyone else just does the same shit and Dylan Brown showcases a few more wrinkles, then the Eels are in a good spot. And I'd also suggest, the Eels, as we've discussed a few times, their development, Dylan Brown's got better every season. Isaiah Papali'i has got better every season at the Eels. Manata Niokore got better every season. That doesn't happen at every NRL club, and the Eels should be commended for that from a Kiwi-NRL perspective. Raiders versus Panthers is also an interesting contest wildcard, because you're going to get Matthew Tomoko coming up. Probably, I think it is Isaac Tungle. He'll probably start at left centre for the Panthers. Tomoko plays right centre for the Raiders. And again, Tomoko's got a bit of buzz now. The Aussies are starting to look at Tomoko for his consistent mahi, powerful runner, just does his job at centre. And we hear a lot about the Panthers youngsters, their development system, and Isaac Tungle is part of that. He's starting at centre. He's sealed his spot. Well, let's see how you go against young Tomoko. Then wildcard, we've got Joseph Tapine versus James Fisher-Harris. Now, that is ridiculous again. And I'm always fascinated, just the reputation of Josh Papali'i. Fantastic middle forward. One of the best middle forwards over the past decade. But Joseph Tapine is doing more work, more efficiently this season than Josh Papali'i. And it's they start the game, they're both fantastic, they're busting tackles, making PCMs, getting offloads, and then Papali'i goes off the field and they'll make a song and dance about it. They'll cut to a shot of Josh Papali'i going to the bench, and like another great stint from Papali'i. Next minute, Joseph Tapane's taken a hit up. He gets 10 meters and he gets an offload, and he's still going. It's like, I'm just kind of fascinated by how Joseph Tapane, he's got better. Like, he just keeps getting better as well. And I think he is undisputably top 5 middle forwards in the NRL. He's better than Papali'i. Papali'i might be top 5, but Tapane is better than him. And he's coming up against James Fisher-Harris, who is perennially top 5 middle forward as well. But also you got Moses Leota, new Aotearoa Kiwis middle forward. He's also starting at prop. So you got Papali'i. I mean, he's born in Auckland, so a bit of a factor. Papali'i and Joseph Tapane versus Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris. That is brutal. But specifically Tapane versus James Fisher-Harris, they are both excellent middle forwards and quite different in their mahi as well. Like Tapane offloads, tackle bus, quite a roving middle forward. He'll run across field to do some footwork, and he's a physical beast. Like, don't run into him. And definitely if you're like a little Aaron Booth type of, I was about to drop a C word and I'll refrain from doing so, kids or parents might be listening, but if you're a little Aaron Booth type of C word and you're diving at Joseph Tapane's legs, you deserve to be ragdolled, like that is Joseph Tapane, Wellington's finest. He's an absolute monster. Don't do that to him. But again, fun Kiwi-NRL battle with some of these players.
Yeah, that's Tapane versus Fisher-Harris is basically like heavyweight title fight kind of areas there. That's something else. That's not even like what we were saying before about Dean Mariner and Joseph Manu, where it's like the emerging guy against the established star. It's like, here's just 2 established stars. It's like, bang, That's some nice appointment. What's that one? Saturday night. Right before the Dragons game, which we probably won't talk about much because we're talking the Kiwi-NRL thing. But you might have some Shark stuff to talk about. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the Dragons, but I'm talking about the Sharks because Braden Hamlin-Uele coming into the starting lineup.
There you go.
I think he battled injury for a while, and then he came off the bench for a few weeks, and now he gets an opportunity with an injury to Royce Hunt. So Braden Hamlin-Uele comes in, and he's an interesting player to track because 2019 he was playing for the Aotearoa Kiwis, and I don't think he was far off the squad for the recent Kiwis test against Tonga, but he had to play some footy. He was out injured, so he's come back in. Now he's starting, and like, you're not looking. Braden Hamlin-Uele doesn't do Tapane Fisher-Harris type of stuff, but he does bend the line, and he is a weapon close to the try line. I've always been fascinated by the idea of just having different shapes and sizes in your team, especially in your forward pack, because every shape and size means you have to tackle differently. And Braden Hamlin-Uele is a bit more of a wrecking ball. He's not rotund, but he's more of a wrecking ball type of middle forward, and he's different to Tapane and Fisher-Harris, but he is very effective in progressing the ball up the middle of the field. Very efficient, 10 meter per run type of stuff. And now he's starting against the Dragons, and the Dragons don't have many strengths wildcard, but their forward pack is quite good. So how Braden Hamlin-Uele, Glenora Bears Jr., off the top of my head, how he goes against this Dragons team will be interesting. And the Sharks, the local derby, they'll obviously smoke the Dragons.
In the second half. Dragons have been good in the first half against better teams, and then like the last week against the Cowboys, blown out in the second half when it looked close up to that point. Roosters game a couple of weeks ago, same deal. Dragons are probably in like must-win territory now because they're maybe not in terms of points, but their points difference is so bad that that's effectively another loss on their, they're going to lose a tiebreaker against whoever they come up against. So only 5 games to go. they might need to win all 5 of those to make the top 8, which they're probably not going to do because they're not going to win all 5 of those. But it is a big game, whereas the Sharks are scrapping for second, aren't they? They're currently third and playing quite well, and therefore, like, I don't know. Second place is definitely they're 2 points off, but points difference again. They're about 100 behind North Queensland. So, interesting game there, where it maybe doesn't have as much on the line in terms of like, must win for both teams kind of things. Where it's like it's not necessarily a must win for Cronulla. It is a must win for the Dragons, but they're probably not gonna win. But I don't know. And maybe the Dragons will get up against a better team for once. They haven't done that. They haven't done that basically at all this season. They've been good at beating teams they should beat and then lose. They've also got, you remember when the Phoenix last year, Phoenix last season had that thing where like when they scored the first goal, they always won or drew. And when they conceded the first goal, they always lost. I think it lasted the entire season. I'm not actually sure. If it did, then they kept it up in their FFA Cup win last night, or Australia Cup it's called now. So they scored first, won 4-0 against Brisbane Strikers, I believe they're called. Old mate Keegan Smith was in goal. Former Phoenix player once upon a time was in goal for Brisbane there. So, but the Dragons have the same thing going this year, where when they concede the first try, they lose, and when they score the first try, they win. It's a weird one how that can be such a decisive factor, and yet if it happens over the course of a season, you kind of think, well, it can't just be a fluke. Like there's something about it. When they play well, they score first, and when they don't play well, they concede first. So this game is what I'm saying. This game is one that could be decided in the first 5 minutes of Canberra, of Cronulla score an early try, which they probably will. It'll probably be Brandon Hamlin-Uele. So there you go.
As we know, Dragons probably the worst Kiwi-NRL club to ever exist.
Yeah, disappointing, that one.
However, Wildcard, there is a new development. The bro, Navajo Doyle, he has progressed from SG Ball with the Dragons, and he's played a few Jersey Fleet games recently for the Dragons. Young hooker from Auckland, went to King's College, played a lot of the league in Auckland as well. He is in the Dragons system, and he's playing Jersey Fleet. So you might have a Kiwi-NRL present there, in 5 years' time or something. I don't know, but
might get a game later in the season if they lose and they're out of contention and start rolling through some backups for next season, as teams want to do. That maybe that's the thing to cheer for. Big Sharks win this weekend, and then the Dragons can start rotating. No, that doesn't happen. There's already been leaks from the thing complaining about how the coach only wants to pick his Broncos boys. So don't think we'll get that rotation going.
Do you know what the weirdest shit is? This happened, it literally happened with the All Blacks and maybe the Dragons in the same week. It's like, shit's hitting the fan, so we'll fire the assistant coaches.
Yeah.
You're cool. Great.
Not the head coaches, just the assistant coaches.
It is so for the, especially for the All Blacks, it's like, okay, but it's clear you're only making a move because you feel pressured to do so. Because if you're going to make a real move, which I don't think the All Blacks should be doing, everyone needs to chill the fuck out. But if you're going to make a real move, you make a real move. But it's happened a few times. There was, I think, the Gold Coast Titans, their coach was under pressure, old Holbrook. And so what do? They get rid of the assistant coach, Jim Dimmock.
The symbolic move.
It literally is symbolic, and it means nothing. It just means well, we like the coach, but we feel under the pump. And just because we feel under the pump, we feel like we have to do something. Not because we want to do something, we just feel like we have to do something. So we're going to do the least relevant thing possible and get rid of the assistant coaches. It's a weird situation.
It is a very weird situation, especially in that All Blacks situation where it's like they, the dude they hired instead, old mate Ryan, was supposed, I think he was going to be on the prospective thing for the other dude that everyone else seems to want as coach right now. He was on Scott Robertson's short list of of assistants, which they had to present at their job applications for some reason. They wanted the ready-made teams to go, and they said that Foster's apparently his backroom staff was like of a higher. That was one of the things in his favor, and they've just fired one of them to hire someone from the other camp. So strange yarns. That reminds me as well, because we're talking about Max Mata before, living in Ireland and some of the connections there with like all whites and black caps. I've read 2 separate articles, like separate quotes, different interviews with Max Mata in recent times, because he signed a new contract recently. He's scored a few goals, so he's done a couple like interview things, and the Irish people keep asking him about rugby. It's like, what's it like living in Ireland when the All Blacks just lost the series to Ireland? And he's like, well, I mean, I don't really care about rugby. That's his answer. It's like, I might watch it if I'm like at home and there's a barbecue on and the All Blacks game's on or something, but I really don't like check out the results or whatever. I'm like a footballer, and that's kind of the path I've taken, and I'm not that interested in whether the All Blacks win or lose. It was quite a funny little scenario to get chucked in there as well, but it's particularly funny because it feels like exactly what Kiwi media would do to an Irishman who was living here if the tables had been flipped the other way around. Like, say there was an Irishman playing for the Crusaders or something like that, or for the Phoenix, let's say. We'll keep the sporting thing. Let's say the Phoenix had an Irishman and then the All Blacks beat Ireland over there or something, and it'd be like, what do you reckon about the rugby? And we'd be like, I don't care. Like, I'm not interested in that.
I think
Max Mata doing good things for the country there by spreading the sporting wealth.
Yeah, I think Max Mata was getting more into the zone of like, well, Aotearoa is the best sporting nation in the world, and that's because we love a lot of sports and we're really good at a lot of different sports. But your example that you were talking about, I was thinking like, what would happen is the Aotearoa media or someone would be like, okay, Mr. Irishman, but what did you think about the All Blacks performance?
Yeah.
Because that's literally all they do. And now it's South Africa. So now it's not Kiwis. It's literally just the Kiwi media who can't analyze a game themselves. They can't come up with their own like logical opinions. So they go to South Africa to see what the South Africans are saying. And
the Northern Hemisphere one's always good. Let's see what renowned All Black, fisherman type, clickbaity type fellas, what do they think about the All Blacks losing? Like, well, they hate the All Blacks and say it every opportunity they get. So I wonder what they have to say. You know? It's such an insecure thing to go digging for those.
Well, so if like maybe the best example is if like your political party A, and then you're like, oh, to learn about our party, we're going to see what political party B is saying about political party A, and that's going to inform us about ourselves. And so you can just come. You mean
the party whose ideas are formed about being the exact opposite of your own party, and vice versa? Gee, I wonder how that's going to
go. Shout out to the All Blacks. They're playing South Africa. Who knows what will happen there, because we don't care. We're here for
neither does Max Mata.
Yeah, shout out Max Mata. You're a fantastic representative of Aotearoa sport. And how do we get there? Dragons assistant coaches. So we're looking for big changes with the Dragons because they fired their assistant coaches.
Everything will be better now,
and nothing's going to change. Because you get actual change. If you really want change, you get actual change when you do fire a coach like the Bulldogs, and everything changes.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a lesson to everyone involved. If like fair play, if you don't want to make a change, that is all good. Because I personally think the All Blacks could have just rode this wave of adversity with no changes. That's fine. But if you do want to make a change, actually make a change. The Bulldogs made a change, and now they're a funky, fun, entertaining team. Dragons made the assistant coach changes, and they're not making the finals wildcard. Like, you're quite hopeful.
No, it's not going to happen.
They're probably the most mundane NRL team currently in existence. However, Bulldogs versus Cowboys. Bulldogs, I'm actually liking the work of Jeremy Marshall-King and Zach Docker-Clay. Docker-Clay, he was a junior Kiwi back in the day, alongside Te Maire Martin. But he's a bit of a journey, went to England, And I think he spent time in the Seagulls system, and now he made his debut this year with the Bulldogs, and he's getting a good run there. Jeremy Marshall-King off to the Redcliffe Dolphins next season. What do we know about the Redcliffe Dolphins? Half their squad is from Aotearoa. Also, Cowboys, big Griffin Niami lover over here. Wrote about him recently. I've done 2 Kiwi-NRL spotlights on Griffin Niami. Wrote about him the second one last week, I think it was. Then he scored a try straight up the guts. He's
against the Dragons.
Against the Dragons. Great middle defense from the Dragons. Griffin Niami, I don't know what it is about him. He's just a massive unit and he moves well. But every run he pokes through. It's kind of a bit of a tap. I've got a bit of a Tapane vibe about Griffin Niami. There it is. I've found it. Bit of a Tapane vibe.
Interesting.
He's just like, he doesn't resemble Fisher Harris. Maybe a bit of Jesse Bromwich, but he needs to build up the mana. Whereas like he just feels like he has a similar style about his work as Joseph Tapane. And if we're poking fun at teams and NRL clubs wildcard, I just find nothing as entertaining as the Newcastle Knights. Like, I watched that game against the Bulldogs because the Bulldogs are fun and entertaining, but also the Newcastle Knights somehow are terrible despite this whole idea of like Newcastle Knights fans are the best. They still show out to watch their team at home games, and like the fans are rewarded with just more shitty Newcastle Knights football at home. And that brings me around to this idea wildcard that we always talk about. There's always a team worse than the Warriors. Like, don't worry about that. Whether it's worse at footy or worse in terms of drama as well. Warriors don't win the wooden spoon. Warriors don't like have weird dramas like these Australian clubs. So no matter how you feel about the Warriors, there's always a team that is worse than the Warriors. And if you do want to binge some crappy NRL stuff, watch the Newcastle Knights because they're facing the Aotearoa Tigers. Another jam-packed Kiwi-NRL Tigers outfit. Stafford Toa, Asu Kepaoa, Kema Malo, Fa'amanu Brown, Kaumatua Langi, Austin Diaz is on the bench still. Hoping for a massive Tigers victory here, wildcard. I do like the Tigers when they're trucking along nicely and lots of Kiwi-NRL flavour in their team. Especially, I referenced Mamalo before, loving his work as well. Every time you watch Mamalo run, he runs ridiculously hard. He's a massive unit. He runs it straight, no handbrake. But he does have a step. And this is something I saw at the Warriors. I think it's usually a left foot step. So imagine you've got this massive dude running at you. He's winding up and you're defensively winding up. You're getting ready for the contest. Your shoulders are ready and you're lining him up. And you know if there's a big unit running straight at you, he's probably going to run straight at you. So that's like your whole defensive mindset. Mamalo's always got a step. And that's not a cowardice thing. Like, no, you're not running it straight. Oh, what? You've got a handbrake. That type of shit, it's a weapon. And I'm amazed by like his continued mahi and how he's progressed with the Tigers as well after that niggly departure from the Warriors. But he's kind of settled into a groove there with the Tigers. And I'm happy for him, actually. And some of these other Tigers, like Kaumatua Langi's off to the Seagulls next season. Still waiting to make sure Isaiah Papali'i makes the moves from Eels to Tigers. But for some of these young Kiwi-NRL Tigers, Toa, Kepaoa, Austin Diaz, like even Fa'amanu Brown, he grew up. He might have played games against Benji Marshall. You know, these dudes are all from Aotearoa, Polynesian Māori, and they've all grown up with major connections to Benji Marshall. Ken Mamalo played with Benji Marshall for the Kiwis. So now that whole situation, it's kind of pivoted from, yeah, the Michael Maguire situation is great because he was Kiwis coach. He's quite big on the Polynesian culture and the kind of brotherhood of that kind of team environment. But obviously his tenure was quite niggly because there's a lot of drama floating around. At least now there's like this fresh hope with the Benji Marshall and just coaching structure there that feels like a better environment for a lot of these Kiwi-NRL lads who were recruited by Michael Maguire.
Yeah, and winner of that game, Tigers Knights, winner of that game goes ahead of the Warriors on the table as well, unless the Warriors win on Friday night or Saturday night, whenever they play. Saturday evening, 5 p.m. The Warriors beat the Rabbitohs, and this isn't the case, but if they don't beat the Rabbitohs, which they very well might not do, then the winner, yeah, Warriors will fall below whoever wins that game. Yeah, like, shout out to Ken Maumalo, because he's had a niggly time of it at the Tigers too. Like even after the Warriors' departure, it's not always been easy for him at the Tigers. So seeing him getting, because it's a weird one because I don't know that anyone ever really doubted the ability that he had or what he could bring. Just for whatever reason, when you're playing for bad teams, someone's got to get scapegoated now and then, and it's generally not just one person. Your turn's gonna come around. But Tigers are hopefully in a better place now. Moving forward, mastermind Tim Sheen is going to come in sooner or later and solve things, and then the great man Benji Marshall. And quick word as well, just for Griffin Neem as well, Griffin Neem, because I did keep a good eye on him in that Dragons Cowboys game. He was fantastic, and he scored the try, 130 odd meters, just like pushing through the line, bending the defensive line. Don't think he missed a tackle, and plays a few more games at a level like that. People will learn how to pronounce Niami correctly as well. I mean, you got sooner or later that one will tick over. But yeah, I thought it was the first time I've watched him like in a full game, like not just highlights or ducking in and out of a game, and also where he was real prominent as well, so that helps. Like I thought he was excellent in that game. So just one more on a long list of top Kiwi performers in the NRL each week.
And if you're thinking like Kiwis, we're talking Braden Hamlin-Uele, we're talking Griffin Niami, and they're joining Moses Leota, Scott Sorensen, who are the squad and the team that played against Tonga, squad against Tonga. So those are the caliber of forwards. And also, I don't like just the pure centre depth.
Yes.
So the Tigers have Stafford Toa and Asu Kepaoa. They are the starting centres for the Tigers. They are both from Auckland. Peter Hiku for the Cowboys. Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Joey Manu, Dean Mariner, like
Morgan Harper.
Not a hater. Morgan Harper, he's a lover, not a hater, and he's a trooper.